The first time Vought noticed the clown, it wasn't on a security camera. It was in the metrics. A Tuesday morning spike, missing children, up in 3 cities at once. A second spike, panic purchases, bottled water, generators, gun safes. A third, engagement. Every clip of crying parents, every shaky phone, video of a storm drain breathing. Every whispered "I saw a smile" in the dark turned into an algorithmic jackpot. Vaught's crisis team called it a containable perception event. Then the calls started coming from inside Vought Tower. Grown adults, senior staff, soups, shaking so hard they couldn't hold a phone, all saying the same thing. There's something in the pipes. Ashley Barrett didn't believe in monsters. She believed in lawsuits. She stood in a glass-walled war room on the 42nd floor, staring at a map dotted with red pins. 3 disappearances. No evidence. No fingerprints. No ransom. Just one repeating detail, delivered by a traumatized 8-year-old who'd been found wandering barefoot by a motorway. The clown offered me a balloon and said he knew my name. Ashley turned to the head of Vought Security. So we're saying, a clown is kidnapping kids? It's not, he began. The lights flickered, like the building had blinked. Every monitor in the room glitched at once. Not dead, not black, just wrong. Static that looked too organized. Like teeth. For 1 second, the security feed from the basement popped up by itself. A corridor of pipes and valves, wet concrete, and a single red balloon floating at shoulder height, perfectly still. Then the balloon bobbed, as if something beneath it was laughing without sound. Ashley's throat tightened. She hated that. She hated her body betraying her. A speaker on the wall crackled. A child's giggle filtered through metal. And then a voice, bright, sweet, older than it should be. "Hello, Vought." Ashley tried to speak. Only a whisper came out. "Who is this?" The voice sounded pleased. "Oh, I've been called lots of things. But today I'm your problem." On the basement feed, a pale face drifted into frame from the darkness. White makeup, yellow eyes that didn't look like contact lenses. A grin carved too wide to belong to anything human. "Come down," it said. "I brought gifts." The feed cut. The war room stayed silent, as if even corporate air conditioning didn't dare make noise. Ashley swallowed. "Find out what that is, now." Outside, the city kept moving, unaware it had been placed gently on a hook. Homelander hated fear in other people. It was supposed to be his product. He arrived at Vought Tower with his cape snapping like a flag and a smile that could sell war to a baby. Cameras waited. Reporters waited. The public waited for a hero entrance that would make them feel safe again. He walked into the lobby and stopped. The fountain was overflowing. Not water balloons. Hundreds of them, red, glossy, rising in slow clusters like a living thing was exhaling. A little boy stood among them, perfectly clean, holding one string. Homelander's smile hardened. "Where are your parents?" The boy looked up with terrified eyes. Then his face changed, skin paling, eyes yellowing, mouth stretching wider as if it had always been that shape and was only now remembering. "Hiya, hero," the boy said, voice suddenly bright and sing-song. "Do you want to float?" Homelander's heat vision flared on instinct. A line of red light sliced through the lobby, clean, controlled. The boy popped like a balloon and laughed while it did it. The laughter came from everywhere, behind the marble columns, inside the elevator shafts, under the floor. The balloons shivered, as if giggling. Homelander's jaw clenched. Enough. He hovered, eyes scanning, trying to find the source, like fear was a thing he could punch. A train burst in, skidding. "Boss, there's something outside." A train stopped mid-sentence, staring at a balloon floating at his eye level. On it, written in neat black marker, "You're slower than you think." A train's breathing turned sharp. He backed up. "No, no, no, no." The balloon drifted closer. A train swatted it away, hard. It didn't pop. It just bounced, like rubber, and floated back, patient. Starlight stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. This is a stunt. Vaught's doing. A balloon floated down in front of her. On it, they only love you when you bleed light. Starlight's face tightened. For a second she saw it, her own reflection in the balloon's surface, eyes sunken, smile forced, the endless interviews. Maeve muttered, "This is bullshit." Then the lobby speakers played a sound, Maeve's own voice, drunk and laughing, saying something she'd only ever said in private. Something about how she hated herself for staying. Maeve went still. Homelander looked around, furious now, not at the clown, not yet, but at the fact that someone was touching his collection, his brand, his control. And then Pennywise finally stepped out, not from a shadow, from the American flag hanging behind the reception desk, as if the fabric had become a curtain. He emerged with theatrical grace, head tilted, grin generous, eyes cold. My, he said. "This place smells like..." Applause. Homelander dropped lower until he was face to face with it. "You're in my house." Pennywise's smile widened with delight. "Oh, sweetheart, you don't have a house, you have a stage, and stages are where people scream." Homelander grabbed Pennywise by the throat and lifted him, one-handed. Pennywise didn't struggle. He just stared into Homelander's eyes, like he was reading a menu. "Tell me," Pennywise whispered, "do you ever worry they'll stop clapping?" Homelander's grip tightened, and the lobby filled with a sound that didn't belong there. The soft, distant cheers of a crowd, a stadium crowd, chanting Homelander's name then stopping, abruptly, like a switch being flipped. The chant turned into laughter, mocking, endless. Homelander's eyes twitched. Pennywise's voice softened, almost tender. "You're delicious." Homelander flung Pennywise across the lobby. Pennywise hit the wall and collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Then, from behind Homelander, Pennywise spoke again. Again, Homelander spun. Another Pennywise stood beside the elevator, smiling. Then another, and another. A dozen clowns, all identical, all wearing the same pleasant grin like a corporate logo. The seven didn't attack together. They hesitated. That was all Pennywise needed, because he didn't want their bodies. He wanted what was underneath the costumes. Butcher found the balloon in his kitchen. It was tied to the kettle, like it belonged there. Red, bright, cheerful. A knife lay beside it that he didn't remember leaving out. On the balloon, in thick black marker, "I know what you did to her." Butcher stared at it, jaw grinding. His skin prickled. Old memories crawled up like rats. Huey walked in behind him and froze. Billy?" Butcher didn't turn. "Don't touch it." The balloon bobbed gently, as if pleased to be noticed. Frenchie arrived next. Then Kimiko. Then Mother's Milk. They all stopped in the doorway, all feeling the same thing without needing to say it. That the room had become smaller, that the air had become watchful. Huey forced a laugh that sounded like choking. This is Vought, right? Like a prank." The balloon string tightened around the kettle handle by itself. Then the kettle started boiling. No flame, no switch, just heat rising like something was breathing under the metal. Butcher slowly reached for the knife. A voice came from the kettle's spout, warped by steam. "Billy Yee." Butcher's eyes went flat. "Show yourself, you circus freak." The kettle lid rattled like teeth. "I did," the voice sang. "I showed myself to the ones who wear capes and call it heroism. I showed myself to the church people who sell forgiveness like a subscription. I showed myself to the men in black suits who think secrets are locks." The kettle whistled, loud enough to hurt. "And now," Pennywise purred, "I'm showing myself to you." Butcher's hand tightened around the knife. "Why?" A pause, like the clown savoring the word. "Because you believe in monsters." The balloon drifted toward Butcher's face, close enough that he could smell something faintly sweet and rotten. Then it popped quietly, without a bang, like it had simply decided to stop existing. On the counter, where it had been, sat a small paper boat, folded from a Vought legal document. stamped across the top in red ink. Congressional Hearing Vought International. Butcher stared. MM's voice was low. This ain't normal. Butcher's mouth curled. Humorless. No mate. This is worse. Outside, the street drain near their building gurgled like it was laughing. In a windowless room that smelled of coffee and quiet panic, a CIA handler watched footage frame by frame, red balloons drifting through sewer tunnels, disappearing into darkness where the camera couldn't follow. A second monitor showed a church of the collective sermon devolving into chaos. The preacher had started speaking fine, then began confessing, out loud, to things that made even the congregation recoil. Affairs. Bribes. Miracles, staged with Vought money. He wept and begged, then screamed that a clown was inside his head. The handler looked at Mallory. This isn't a soup. Mallory's face was stone. I don't care what it is, I care what it does. A third monitor showed a Vought lab in Ohio. A researcher had tried to sedate a child found near a storm drain. The child had smiled, wide and wrong, and the entire lab had gone dark. When the lights came back, everyone in the room was alive, but each person was rocking quietly, whispering something different, like they'd all been shown their own private hell, and told it was true. Mallory exhaled through her nose. It's feeding. The handler swallowed. On what? Mallory didn't answer right away. On the fourth monitor, the news looped the same images. Balloons over playgrounds, empty shoes near drains, a clown face painted on walls overnight. The public narrative was already forming. Vought called it terrorism. The government called it an investigation. The internet called it a curse. Mallory finally spoke. Fear. It's feeding on fear. The handler's voice cracked. So what do we do? Mallory looked at him like he was stupid for still believing in plans. We do what we always do, she said. We find someone uglier than it is. And she slid a file across the table. On the cover, in block letters, The Boys. Capitol Hill was built for performance. Pennywise adored it. The congressional hearing was supposed to be Vaught's reset. Polished suits, scripted outrage, controlled questions, and Homelander hovering in the background like a threat wrapped in patriotism. The cameras were rolling. The room was packed. And then, one by one, the microphones began to pick up something else beneath the voices. A faint carnival melody, soft at first, easy to dismiss, then louder, then impossible to ignore. A senator stuttered mid-question, eyes going wide as he stared at the glass of water in front of him. Something red floated in it, rising slowly, as if the water was deeper than physics allowed. A balloon. Another senator laughed sharp, involuntary, then slapped both hands over his mouth like he'd been bitten. On live television, a Vought witness began sweating, then crying, then whispering, "Please don't make me say it." The crowd shifted. Fear started to spread like perfume. And that was when Pennywise appeared where he would be most at home. Behind the witness table, standing perfectly still, dressed as a child-friendly mascot in a suit of red, white, and blue. He bowed to the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said brightly, "let's talk about what you're really afraid of." Homelander shot forward like a bullet. He stopped in midair, not grabbed, not held by force, stopped by something worse. A sudden, absolute certainty in his own mind that if he moved one more inch, everyone would see him the way he saw himself in the quiet. Small, manufactured, replaceable. Homelander's face twitched. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Pennywise turned his head slightly, listening to the room's rising heartbeat like it was music. Somewhere in the audience, Huey whispered, "We need to get out." Butcher didn't move. His eyes were locked on the clown. Pennywise's gaze slid to him, delighted. "Oh," Pennywise said softly, like he'd spotted a favorite meal. "There you are." Butcher felt it then like fingers in his skull, rummaging. He gripped the edge of the bench until his knuckles went white. Pennywise smiled wider. And the hearing room, the cameras, the flags, the carefully rehearsed theater of power, everything that made America feel in control began to look, for just a second, like a child's paper set, cheap, fragile, easy to tear. Pennywise inhaled as if tasting the air. Perfect, he sighed. Then he vanished. Not in smoke, not in light, just gone, like fear itself had stepped behind a curtain. And the room erupted into screaming. Vought tried everything. They sent cleanup teams into sewer systems with thermal goggles and trained dogs. The dogs refused to go down. They sent soups. The soups came back pale, vomiting, swearing they'd seen themselves die 100 different ways. They paid influencers to call it fake. The influencers started posting videos of red balloons outside their bedrooms. The Church of the Collective announced a cleansing night. Their compound flooded with balloons by morning. The CIA drafted plans. They burned through budget. They called in the boys like calling in an infection to fight a disease. None of it mattered. Because Pennywise didn't want to win in the way people understood winning. He wanted the slow, rich harvest. A city that didn't let its kids walk home. A nation that flinched at storm drains. A corporation that finally realized money couldn't buy back sleep. In a quiet Vought elevator, Ashley stood alone, mascara smeared, hand trembling over the button for the executive floor. The lights flickered, her throat tightened. A soft voice came from the speaker above her head, warm as a lullaby. "Thank you," it whispered. "You've all been so generous." Ashley squeezed her eyes shut. "What do you want?" Pennywise chuckled. "Want? Oh no, no, no. I don't want anything from you." The elevator stopped between floors. The lights went out completely. In the pitch dark, something breathed close to her ear. "I'm just eating." Ashley's lungs seized. Tears ran hot down her cheeks. She tried to scream. A red balloon brushed her hand, gentle as a pet. And then the lights returned. The elevator doors opened. Ashley stumbled out onto the executive floor, gasping, alive. No one jumped out. No blood. No body. Just a single paper boat on the carpet, folded neatly, waiting. On it, written in black, "See you when you're ready to admit the truth." Ashley stared at it, shaking. She didn't pick it up. She didn't have to. The truth had already climbed inside her. And somewhere beneath the city, in the warm dark where fear pooled and fermented, Pennywise smiled into the pipes, listening to a world that had finally learned what it meant to live under something that couldn't be bribed, blackmailed, or bombed. A world where the scariest thing wasn't a soup in the sky. It was the quiet, childish giggle from a storm drain behind your house, and the sudden thought that maybe it knew your name.